On March 2, 2026, the same day the U.S.-Israel war on Iran entered its third day, Lebanon's prime minister held an emergency press conference. He looked into the cameras, and he said something that almost no Arab leader has ever said out loud about Hezbollah. He announced a complete ban on all of Hezbollah's military activities. He ordered the group to restrict itself to politics. He told them, in essence, this is not your war, and you do not represent Lebanon. And then, Hezbollah completely ignored him. Within hours, rockets and drones were already in the air heading toward Israel. And that moment, a sovereign government publicly banning an armed group inside its own borders, and that group openly defying the ban while Lebanon burned around it. That moment tells you almost everything you need to understand about what Hezbollah actually is. So here is today's open loop. How does a militia get so deeply embedded inside a country that the country's own government cannot stop it from starting a war? We are going to answer that from the ground up. Welcome back to the series. We have covered the Hormuz closure, Operation Roaring Lion, Iran's missile capabilities, why America backs Israel, who controls the Middle East's oil, and the 70-year Iran-Israel history. Every single one of those videos touched Hezbollah in some way, because almost every crisis in the Middle East for the past 40 years has touched Hezbollah in some way. Today, we finally go deep on the organization itself. Who created it, who funds it, how it works, what it has done, and why, in March of 2026, a group that was described by CNN as barely a shadow of its former self, just dragged 4 million Lebanese civilians into a war they did not vote for, did not ask for, and cannot escape. This one matters. Let's get into it. The name Hezbollah comes from Arabic. It literally means party of God. It is derived from a verse in the Quran, and from the very beginning, language like that was a signal this was not going to be an ordinary political party or a conventional militia. This was going to be a movement that fused religion, politics, military force, and social services into a single organism, one that would make itself so necessary to so many Lebanese people that removing it would feel like cutting out part of the country's own body. That was the design. Here is how it was born. In June of 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon. The stated objective was to destroy the Palestine Liberation Organization, which had been using southern Lebanon as a base for attacks. Israeli forces drove deep into the country, reached Beirut, and stayed. According to the Iran primer at the U.S. Institute of Peace, Iran's new Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, seized on the chaos. Iran sent approximately 1,500 IRGC trainers and advisors into Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, and those trainers helped organize, arm, and ideologically shape a new underground militia from Lebanon's Shia Muslim community, which had historically been the country's poorest and most marginalized group. That militia was Hezbollah. According to the Wilson Center, Hezbollah evolved from a shadowy underground network in the early 1980s into the world's most heavily armed non-state actor. And critically, Hezbollah was from day one an extension of Iran's foreign policy, not an expression of Lebanese national interest. But here is the pattern interrupt, and this is the thing that makes Hezbollah genuinely different from almost any other militant group in history. While it was firing rockets at Israel and blowing up embassies, it was also, simultaneously, building hospitals, building schools, running clinics, providing garbage collection in poor Shia neighborhoods where the Lebanese state had never bothered to show up. According to PBS, the group created an extensive social network that made it, for many Lebanese Shia, the most reliable institution in their lives, better than the government, better than any international aid organization. When you understand that, you start to understand why simply banning Hezbollah, as the Lebanese PM tried to do on March 2nd, is so much harder than it sounds. Now let's go to the moment that made Hezbollah infamous worldwide and made it an existential enemy of the United States. October 23, 1983. It is before dawn in Beirut. 2 truck bombs detonate simultaneously, one at a building housing U.S. Marines, one at a compound of French paratroopers. According to Wikipedia and the U.S. Embassy Memorial Records, 241 American service members were killed, 220 Marines, 18 Navy sailors, and 3 Army soldiers. 58 French paratroopers also died. It remains the deadliest single-day attack on the United States Marine Corps in history since the Battle of Iwo Jima. The group behind it, according to FDD and Cohen-Milstein's legal research, was operating under Iranian direction. The attack is widely attributed to what became Hezbollah. The result: the United States withdrew its forces from Lebanon, and Hezbollah had learned a lesson it would never forget: spectacular violence against a superpower could actually work. For the next 2 decades, Hezbollah grew. Backed by Iran's oil money, trained by IRGC advisors, supplied through Syria, which provided the critical land bridge between Iran and Lebanon. Hezbollah built a military force that defied every conventional category. It was not an army in the traditional sense. It had no air force, no navy. But according to Iran Wire, Iran transferred over $1 billion to Hezbollah in just 10 months at one point. According to Reuters reporting in March 2026, 6 sources confirmed that Hezbollah ran on a budget of roughly $50 million per month, largely from Iran. That kind of sustained, long-term investment built something extraordinary: a military network embedded inside a civilian population, with a rocket arsenal that eventually reached, before the 2024 war, an estimated 120,000 to 150,000 rockets and missiles of various ranges. And then came 2006. This is the conflict that made Hezbollah a legend across the Arab world. In July of that year, Hezbollah fighters crossed into Israel, killed 8 Israeli soldiers, and kidnapped 2 others. Israel responded with a full military campaign, the 33-day Lebanon War. According to Britannica, by the time UN Security Council Resolution 1701 ended the fighting in August, over 1,200 Lebanese had been killed, along with 159 Israelis. Israel had the most advanced military in the Middle East. Hezbollah was a non-state militia. And yet, Hezbollah survived. It kept firing rockets into Israel throughout the entire 33 days. It embarrassed the Israeli Defense Forces tactically. And when it was over, according to Tehran Times, Iran declared it a golden victory. Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's charismatic leader since 1992, emerged as the most popular man in the Arab world, not just in Lebanon, across the entire region. His face was on posters in Cairo, in Amman, in Damascus. But actually, and here is the first, but actually, of this video, 2006 planted a seed that Israel never forgot. Israel watched and studied and waited. Because, according to the Jerusalem Post, the IDF's success in Lebanon in 2024 was built directly on lessons from 2006's failures. Israel spent 18 years learning exactly how Hezbollah fought, exactly where it hid its weapons, exactly how it communicated, exactly who led it, and then came September of 2024. In a series of operations that stunned the intelligence world, Israel did something that had seemed almost impossible for decades. On September 17th, thousands of Hezbollah pagers detonated simultaneously across Lebanon, killing and wounding hundreds of operatives, including senior commanders. It was one of the most sophisticated supply chain intelligence operations in history. 3 days later, Israeli strikes killed Hezbollah's operations commander, Ibrahim Akil, who had a $7 million U.S. bounty on his head, along with multiple other commanders. According to AP News, the 2024 war ultimately killed more than 3,800 people in Lebanon and displaced over 1.2 million, according to Human Rights Watch. And on September 27, 2024, a massive bunker-busting Israeli airstrike hit Hezbollah's headquarters in the southern suburbs of Beirut. Hassan Nasrallah, who had led the organization for 32 years, who had survived assassination attempts for 3 decades, who was arguably the most powerful non-state actor in the world, was killed. According to Wikipedia's account of the 2024 headquarters strike, his body was recovered from the rubble the following day. Hezbollah was shattered, its leadership was decapitated, its tunnel networks exposed, its elite Radwan force badly damaged. The group's arsenal, which had peaked at over 100,000 rockets, was devastated by Israeli strikes. But here is the thing, it did not disappear. According to Times of Israel reporting from September 2025, a year after Nasrallah's death, Hezbollah was weakened but financially resilient. It had a new leader, Sheikh Naim Qassem. And according to Reuters, publishing their investigation on March 6, 2026, Hezbollah had spent months, quietly, secretly, relentlessly, rearming. Using a $50 million a month budget largely from Iran, using its own underground weapons factories in the Bekaa Valley, manufacturing new rockets and drones locally because Iran's overland supply route through Syria had been cut. According to the Alma Institute's January 2026 military assessment, by the time the Iran war started, Hezbollah's arsenal had been rebuilt to approximately 25,000 rockets and missiles. That is a fraction of its pre-2024 peak. But as Reuters noted, on March 2nd, the group launched 60 drones and rockets. By March 4th, that number had more than doubled. They were drawing on their rebuilt stockpile, and they were not done. Now we get to the part of this story that most coverage skips over. Because the question that everyone is asking right now, in Beirut, in Washington, in Tel Aviv, is why? Why did Hezbollah, a group that just lost its iconic leader, just lost thousands of fighters, just had its arsenal reduced by roughly 80%? Why did it choose to launch rockets into Israel on March 2, 2026, the same day its own government was begging it not to? There are four interlocking answers, and together they reveal something about how Iran built Hezbollah that makes the group almost structurally impossible to stop. Answer number 1. Hezbollah has no choice but to fight when Iran fights. This is the most important thing to understand about the axis of resistance, a term that refers to Iran's network of allied forces across the region, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen, and various Iraqi Shia militias. According to the Los Angeles Times, Iran has spent decades and billions of dollars building this network of allied militias. The entire architecture is designed so that Israel and America cannot attack one node without facing multiple fronts simultaneously. This is called multi-front deterrence. Hezbollah is the most important node, the crown jewel. If Hezbollah stays silent while Iran gets bombed, the entire deterrence logic of the axis collapses. Iran loses its most credible threat against Israel. And according to Carnegie Endowment, if Iran loses this war without Hezbollah firing a shot, Iran may end up pushing Hezbollah into the abyss anyway, because a victorious Israel with no constraints would have every incentive to finish the job in Lebanon. Hezbollah calculated that fighting now, while weakened, was less dangerous than waiting. Answer number 2. Hezbollah is Iran's insurance policy, and Iran just called it in. Hezbollah was never designed to be autonomous. According to the Iran primer at USIP, Hezbollah was created specifically as an export of the Islamic Revolution, Khomeini's ideology that Shia Islamist movements should spread across the region under Iranian guidance. The IRGC's Quds Force, which manages Iran's proxy relationships, has maintained continuous operational contact with Hezbollah for 40 years. According to the Washington Post's March 2026 reporting, even after Khamenei's death and the chaos of the current war, Iranian proxy forces, including Hezbollah, issued statements specifically mourning the death of Iran's supreme leader, confirming the ideological and operational bond remains active. When the Quds Force signaled it was time to open the Lebanon front, Hezbollah opened it. Answer number 3. Lebanon. The country and Hezbollah, the organization, are two completely different things, and they want different things. This is the contradiction that has defined Lebanese politics for 4 decades and that exploded into open public view on March 2, 2026. On one side, the Lebanese government, the new President Joseph Aoun, elected on January 9, 2025, a former Lebanese Armed Forces commander, Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, who formed a reform-oriented government in February 2025. According to Al Jazeera, their government had already banned Hezbollah's military activities on March 2 and, according to the UK Parliament's Commons Library, had approved a Lebanese armed forces plan to disarm Hezbollah in September 2025. The Lebanese foreign minister publicly condemned Iranian-linked attacks and said Hezbollah's military actions do not represent Lebanon. Lebanon's official state position is, "We want to be a normal country. We do not want this war." On the other side, Hezbollah, which holds 13 of 128 seats in the Lebanese parliament, according to the Congressional Research Service, and which commands forces far more powerful than the Lebanese army itself. The group defied its own government's ban in real time on international television. The Lebanese PM said, "You may not fight." Hezbollah said, "Watch us." Answer number 4. Israel is not just reacting. Israel is seizing an opportunity. This is perhaps the darkest, but actually of this entire series. According to CNN's analysis from March 6, 2026, titled, Israel Seizes Chance to Finish the Job Against Hezbollah, Israel has targeted Hezbollah with hundreds of airstrikes since the Iran war started. At least 217 people have been killed and nearly 500 wounded in Lebanon. According to Reuters, Israel warned Lebanon of disastrous repercussions. According to The Arab Weekly, Israel's stated aims against Hezbollah are designed to last beyond the Iran war, meaning Israel is not merely responding to Hezbollah rocket fire. Israel is pursuing a comprehensive campaign to permanently eliminate Hezbollah as a military force, using the Iran war as the strategic window to do what it could not do in 2006 or in 2024. According to the Jerusalem Post, Israeli military experts have said that the 2024 decapitation of Hezbollah's leadership was essential for making the current Iran operation possible, because without the Lebanon front being degraded, Iran would have had a far more dangerous second strike capability sitting on Israel's northern border. Now, with Hezbollah weakened, Israel is trying to close that window permanently, and in the middle of all this, 4 million Lebanese civilians. According to CBC and ActionAid, over 85,000 people have been displaced in Lebanon since March the 2nd alone. The 2024 war had already displaced more than 1.2 million. This is a country that has been repeatedly punished for decisions made by a militia its own government cannot control, funded by a foreign power, fighting for interests that are not Lebanese interests. So where does this go? Because Lebanon's story, unlike Iran's, unlike Israel's, is not mainly a military story. It is a political and humanitarian story. And the next few months will determine whether Lebanon gets a chance to break free of Hezbollah's grip or whether it gets buried under another war. Here is the key variable that almost nobody is talking about in the mainstream coverage. According to Al Jazeera's analysis published March 8, 2026, Israel may actually be trying to separate Hezbollah from its own support base, from the Lebanese Shia community that has sustained it for 4 decades. How? By making it impossible for Hezbollah to claim it is protecting Lebanon when Lebanon's own government is publicly condemning it, when Lebanese civilians are being killed and displaced because of Hezbollah's rockets, and when Hezbollah's social services are being dismantled alongside its military infrastructure. There is a theory circulating in policy circles, visible in the ISW and Washington Institute analyses, that this is Israel's long-term play, not just degrade Hezbollah's weapons, but delegitimize it in the eyes of its own community. Whether that works depends entirely on 3 factors. Factor 1. How many Lebanese civilians die and who gets blamed? If the Lebanese public blames Israel, as it largely did in 2006, Hezbollah's mythology survives. If it blames Hezbollah, as many Lebanese are already saying openly, with BBC reporting residents saying, "This is wrong," then Hezbollah loses the social legitimacy that has always been its most durable protection. According to the BBC, even some in Lebanon's Shia community are publicly questioning Hezbollah's decision to open a front in a war they say is not Lebanon's to fight. Factor 2. Whether the Lebanese armed forces can actually fill the security vacuum that Hezbollah's destruction would leave. The LAF has an approved plan to disarm Hezbollah, but according to Al Jazeera, implementing it is bold but difficult. The Lebanese army is underfunded, under-equipped, and historically reluctant to confront Hezbollah directly. For the disarmament plan to work, the LAF needs massive international financial and military support from the United States, France, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states. According to ISW, the international community must provide faster support to Lebanon if weakening Hezbollah is to produce a stable outcome rather than a new power vacuum. Factor 3. What happens to Iran? If Iran's current leadership collapses or is severely weakened by the ongoing war, the funding pipeline that sustains Hezbollah, $50 million a month, could be interrupted. According to the Hill's analysis of Iran's Proxy network, the fall of Syria's Assad government in December 2024 had already severed the logistical backbone of the axis of resistance, cutting Iran's overland supply route to Lebanon through Damascus. Hezbollah was already adapting by manufacturing weapons locally. But a financially depleted Iran cannot maintain a $50 million a month foreign military project indefinitely. If the Iran war damages Tehran's ability to fund Hezbollah, that accelerates the group's decline faster than any Israeli airstrike. 3 scenarios for Lebanon in the next 90 days. 1. Rapid Iran ceasefire, Lebanon stabilizes. The Iran war ends quickly, Hezbollah stops firing, Israel stops striking Lebanon, and the Lebanese government uses the window to advance disarmament with international support. Best case outcome, but requires a political solution to the Iran war that does not yet exist. 2. Prolonged grinding conflict. Hezbollah continues firing, Israel continues striking, the death toll in Lebanon climbs past 1,000. International pressure mounts for a new UN resolution similar to 71 in 2006. Lebanon survives but is further destroyed, and Hezbollah emerges weakened but undefeated. 3. Israeli ground operation into Lebanon. This is the scenario that terrifies Lebanese officials. If Israel decides the air campaign is insufficient and launches ground forces into southern Lebanon, as it did in 1982 and in 2006, the humanitarian catastrophe would dwarf anything since the Civil War. Israel has not announced such an operation, but it has not ruled one out. Watch for Israeli mobilization of reserve ground forces near the northern border as the key early warning indicator. Here is what I want you to take away from this video. Hezbollah is not a terrorist group that happened to form in Lebanon. It is a deliberate Iranian state project, built over 40 years, designed to serve Iranian interests by embedding military capability inside a civilian society so deeply that dismantling it means dismantling the society itself. That was always the genius of the design, and always its cruelty to the Lebanese people. What we are watching right now is the collision of that design with 3 forces. It may not survive simultaneously. An Israeli military that has been preparing for this moment for 18 years. A Lebanese government that is, for the first time in decades, genuinely trying to reclaim sovereignty, and a weakened Iran that is fighting for its own existence and may no longer be able to write the $50 million monthly check. Hezbollah in March 2026 is, as CNN put it, barely a shadow of its former self. It started this round of the war with 25,000 rockets instead of 150,000. It lost its founding leader. It lost its supply lines. It is fighting a war its own government banned it from fighting. And yet, it is still firing. That tells you something about the depth of Iran's hold on this organization. And it tells you something about how much work remains before Lebanon can actually be Lebanon again. In our next video, we're going full depth on the role Russia has been playing in this conflict. We have touched on it, the satellite targeting data improving Iran's missile hit rate, the intelligence sharing. But the Russia angle goes much deeper than that. And it connects directly to everything happening right now in oil markets, in the global arms race, and in the real question of who wins and loses in a world rearranged by this war. If this video added something to your understanding, subscribe and share it with one person who is watching the Lebanon headlines and asking, how did it get this bad? The answer is 40 years in the making. Now they'll know. See you in the next one.